Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Winnie and I'm a tech professional. I work in tech. I'm a senior cloud and security architect and I landed multiple sponsored job offers and relocated to Dublin via the critical skills employment permit. So if you're a skill professional outside the EU and you have been Googling how to get a job in Ireland, I'm sure that you've come across something called the critical skills employment permit. And I can guarantee you that most of the information you have is incomplete or just wrong. So I'm going to give you the real picture today and the figures, the shortcuts, and the things nobody tells you about. Okay, so I've done this and I'm going to be telling you or sharing with you from my lived experience. So the first one is the critical skills employment permit. What does it mean? Right, so the critical skills employment permit was created by the Irish government specifically because Ireland cannot fill certain skilled roles from its own population or from EU nationals. Okay, so the occupations on this list are deemed critically important in growing Ireland's economy. Okay, and they are in high demand and they are basically on the shortage skill list. So this is the first rule that nobody tells you, okay? So this was created specifically because the skills are in high demand by a lot of organizations. And if you don't know that, Ireland is the tech hub, is the HQ for most of the tech companies in the world, Meta, Google, Microsoft, Dell, and the likes of them, right? So they need people in their country, and that is why they created the critical skills employment permit. Okay, so you're not begging for a chance to come here and work. You're filling a gap that they cannot fill locally, and that is something that is different. When you understand this and you start positioning yourself to land a job in Ireland, you understand that they are hiring you as an expert. You're not begging them to hire you. All right, so that is the first point you need to know. So you understand now what the critical skills employment permit is, why it exists, and how you should start positioning yourself to land a job if you're looking to land a job here in Ireland from outside of EU. All right, so that is the first one. Then the second one is the salary threshold. This is very important. So if you're looking to land a job here, you need to understand what the salary thresholds are. Because if you get a job that is going to pay you a salary that is lower than the threshold, your work permit will not be processed and you will not be able to get your entry visa to come in here. So it's very important that you understand what the salary thresholds are. So this salary threshold for the critical skills employment permit was updated on the 1st of March 2026. They've updated it recently this year. And for the critical skills employment permit, the minimum threshold salary that you are expected to earn as someone with a skill on the critical skills employment permit or critical skills occupations list is 40,904 euros. That is the minimum. So if you're looking for a job, whether you are an entry level, mid-level, whatever it is, your salary threshold must fall under 40,904. It must be a minimum of that. Anything higher than 40,904. I hope that is clear. All right, so you don't need to have a degree, but you must have the relevant experience that they need. That is what they said. But as you know, you cannot gain experience if you really don't have a degree. So most organizations want you to have a degree and then have the relevant experience that you need to be able to perform on the job. And then that is the minimum threshold. Then the maximum is 68,911 euros per year. But it doesn't mean that you can't earn above that. They're telling you that your threshold, your maximum threshold is 68k, almost 69k, and the minimum threshold is 40k, almost 41k, right? So it means that your salary threshold must be between 41, I'm just going to approximate it, 41k to 69k, but it doesn't mean that you can't earn something that is above, you can earn something above 69,000, right? If you're a senior professional, you have experience, 10 years, 15 years, you can earn way above that. You can negotiate and earn way above that because your skill is in high demand and is on the critical skills occupation list. Okay, so very important that you write down these numbers, because if a company offers you something below these figures, your work permit application will be rejected regardless of how good you are. Okay, so you now understand what the minimum threshold is: 40,104 euros, approximately 41,000, and the maximum threshold is 68,911, which is approximately 69,000, right? But you can earn way above that, depending on how you negotiate, on what you negotiate for. All right, so that is the second one, which is the salary threshold. I've shared with you what the critical skills employment permit is, why the Irish government created it, and the second one is the salary threshold. Then the third one is the top roles on the critical skills occupation list. What are the in-demand professions on the 2026 list, 2026 critical skills occupation list? So top of that list is tech, ICT. And the first one on this list is software developers and engineers, network specialists, data analysts, scientists, cybersecurity specialists. So it means anything in that category. It can be cloud security, it can be application security, you understand what I mean. IT project managers, cloud computing specialists, artificial intelligence and machine learning engineers. This is for tech. Then we also have in engineering, civil, mechanical, electrical, design and development engineers, quantity surveyors, structural engineers, chemical engineers, and then in healthcare, which is also in very high demand, medical practitioners, including doctors and GPs, nurses across all disciplines. Nurses are in high demand, especially ICU nurses. We also have radiographers, pharmacists, speech and language therapists, and then clinical psychologists. All right, so if your profession is on that list, you're already ahead of most people who are applying, because you now know that Ireland needs you. So it's not a question of whether they need you. What you should be asking yourself is, how can I position my skills? How can I position my applications to be able to land a job on the critical skills employment permit? All right, so it's very important that what most people miss is the fact that when they go on the critical skills occupation list and they find out that their roles are not there, right? It doesn't mean that you should give up, right? There are other things you can do, right? I mentioned the salary threshold. So if your job is not on the critical skills occupation list, one thing you want to do is ensure that your job, your skill is not on the ineligible occupation list. There's an ineligible skills occupation list as well in Ireland, which means that even if you want to be the best candidate, they can never sponsor you. So as long as your role or your skill is not listed on the ineligible skill occupation list, it means that you can still apply for the critical skills employment permit, but it means that your salary must exceed the threshold. So you must earn something that is 69K and above, right? So even if your skill or your role, let me take it again, even if your skill or your role is not listed on the critical skills occupation list, but you're able to get a job that is going to pay you above 69K, you can still apply for the critical skills employment permit. That is a shortcut, right? So you don't have to give up, okay? And the second one is, if your job or your skill is not listed, but something similar is listed, what most people do is to tell the company to tweak their job description to match one of the roles or one of the skills on the critical skills occupation list. I'm going to give you an example. For example, cybersecurity specialist is on the list, but then maybe you are app security, cloud security, and maybe it's not directly listed there. What you can do is to tell your employer or your recruiter to tweak the description on your letter to match what is exactly on the critical skills employment permit, critical skills occupation list. Okay, I hope I'm not confusing you, because kind of mixing the permit and the occupation list. They're all the same things. So just try to understand what I'm trying to say here. Right, so that is the shortcut, and that is important. So if you understand that, you don't have to give up, because we all know that the benefit of going through landing a job on the critical skills employment permit has better advantages. All right, so I'm going to be talking about the benefits now, so that you see why I'm saying that it's important that you try to get into the critical skills employment permit pathway. All right, so what most people don't know is that the critical skills employment permit, the critical skills permit, gives you 2 years work permits, and no renewal is required. What it means is that if you get your critical skills permit and you come into Ireland and you work for just 21 months, and that means 21 months of paying tax, it fast tracks you straight to stamp 4, right? So once you've been able to, so when you come in, you're going to be on stamp 1, right? So stamp 1 means that you are on sponsorship and your company is currently sponsoring your work permit, right? So it means that you are tied to that company to an extent. And even though there are rules whereby you can then also get a job after 9 months and move to another company, still under the same work permit. But the thing is that you can't just find any job and leave. Your employment must always be tied to a company for sponsorship. So what the critical skills does for you is that it provides you a 2-year work permit, and you don't need to renew. So it means that if you come in within 2 years of your work permit validity and you're able to work for 21 months and pay tax for 21 months, you qualify for stamp 4 residency after just 21 months. So it means that you can then apply for a stamp 4 resident permit, right? So it also gives you the permission. So one of the benefits of the critical skills is that it also gives you the ability to bring your family members immediately, right? Your family can come with you from day 1. So your kids, your spouse can come with you from day 1. And the benefit is that your spouse does not need a separate work permit to be able to find a job here in Ireland. So your spouse will get a stamp 1G. And the stamp 1G gives him or her the ability to be able to work, the permission to be able to work, live and work in Ireland. They can find any job and then they can work. That is also one of the benefits. The other benefit I mentioned is the fact that you can bring your family members immediately from day 1. They can come with you, your spouse and your children. And even if you have your parents, there are other ways to do this, but you must come in here and live for 6 months. You must pay your health insurance, and then you can go through the process of bringing in your parents, which is not your direct dependent, but there are ways there's a process for that to support you, especially if you can prove that there is nobody else that can take care of them in your home country. If you have all the documentation, you can apply and you can bring in your parents as well. But the critical permit allows you, your spouse and your children to come in and work, and your spouse can work here from day 1. Okay, another benefit is the fact that there is no labor market test needed for the critical skills permit, right? So normally for other permit, which is the general employment permit, which I'll be talking about in another video, for an employer to be able to employ you from outside of EU, they must prove that they've advertised for that job for at least 28 or more days before they can hire you. So when they're applying for your work permit, these are all the evidence they need to show that they've done that, and then they cannot find a candidate locally within Ireland or EU, and then they can hire you. So that is one of the advantages of critical skills. They don't need to conduct the labor market needs test. So that is why the process is very fast. And then the final benefit is that the processing time is typically 2 to 4 weeks if you're single. If you're married, it takes longer than that, compared to the general employment permit, which is 5 to 10 weeks. It's longer. They don't consider it critical. So the processing time is delayed. It can take longer than that if you're coming in with of course, you can't come in with your family on general employment permit. You can't come in with them from day one. That is one of the disadvantages. I don't want to talk about general employment permit here because it's something different. I'll cover it on a different video. All right, I hope you're following. Please, if you have any questions, drop it in the comments and then I'll respond to you. Okay, and then let's talk about the costs, because what is the cost of the critical skills work permit and who can pay for it, right? So the cost of the critical skills work permit is 1,000 euro. Okay, as of today, it's 1,000 euro. But the thing is, if your application is refused, the Irish government will pay you back 90% of that. So it means that the real financial risk here is only 100 euros if something goes wrong, right? And either you or your employer can pay the fee, but most times your employer covers that fee. And that fee is only for you, the person who needs the work permit. So it's just one person. All right, so these are the things I think you need to know if you are interested in coming in here to work outside of Ireland. And then the next point is the fact that if you're ready if you come in here to work on the critical skills permit and you get a job, of course you got a job, you come in here to work, and then you want to be able to, you got another job when you came in here, which I think is not fair anyway, but if you come in here, maybe after 6 months or after 9 months, you get another job paying higher and you want to make a switch, you don't need to apply for a new work permit. You can just change jobs within the same field. So for example, if you're an engineer and you can move to another engineering role without starting from scratch. Okay, so if you come in on a work permit tied to your current employer, and you come in and you get a new job, I think it's after 9 months, I can't remember, but you can quickly switch to another employer as long as your job is in the same field, right? So that is another benefit of the critical skills employment permit. So basically, if your skill is in high demand, honestly, if your skill is in high demand and you want to come into Ireland to work, you have the opportunity to do that. But the thing is, I think I've already told you that the reason why they created the critical skills employment permit. So the onus is on you to learn how to position your skills, how to build visibility, credibility, and trust, and how to find those employers that are licensed to sponsor you on the critical skills permit, right? That is what I did. So what I did, and this is what I'm sharing with you, was I started building visibility on LinkedIn way before I needed a sponsored job. Okay, because this is what nobody tells you. They think that they go and apply on the website and then they will get a job. The truth is that the website was built for locals, not you. That is why they always have that question. Are you eligible to work here? Will you need sponsorship now or in the future? Right? Most time that is just a filter to filter you out. And first of all, consider those that are local in the country or in the EU. And then if they don't find, then they can then consider. So if you're applying through the website, you're competing with locals that have experience. So most times you can apply to 100 jobs on the website and not hear anything back because you are competing with locals. Of course, locals will always have advantage over you because nobody wants to sponsor someone when they can find someone locally. Okay, so if you want to learn how to build visibility so you can land a sponsored job here on the critical skills permit, what I think you should be doing is to start building visibility on LinkedIn, right? Build visibility, credibility, and trust. And building visibility is not difficult. People think it's difficult, but it's not difficult. First of all, you need to understand what skill do you have. Is your skill in high demand? If it's in high demand, what is your skill? What is your role name called in your target country, right? How do I start building visibility? Who do I connect with? How do I know who to connect with? You need to connect to different pillars of people on LinkedIn, right? People that can make decisions, people that can hire you, people that have the capacity to make decisions, right? You don't just connect with anybody. You also need to connect to your peers as well, people that have achieved what you want to achieve, so you can learn from them, so that you can be visible to them, so that you can eventually ask them for a referral. So there's a strategy that if you leverage, it should work, right? So if your profession is on the critical skills list and you want to know specifically how to position your application to actually get through, drop your profession and your country in the comments below, and I'm going to respond to you. If you have any questions, share it in the comments, right? And I also kind of host a 21-day sponsorship challenge where I teach you and guide you how to build visibility on LinkedIn, what I did and how I did it, right? And how, what exactly you should be doing, because if you understand the strategy, by the time you do it, you realize that it's working, especially if your skill is in high demand. I've had people that joined the challenge and they got reach out from recruiters in their target company, in their target country in as little as 10 days. So this is just the strategy, and the strategy works. So building visibility is very important in 2026, because in 2026, everybody has a perfect CV. The only thing that distinguishes you from every other person is visibility on LinkedIn. And the good thing is that when you start building visibility, these companies will start finding you. And there's a strategy to doing that, to ensuring that you have the right industry keywords on your profile, so that when they search on LinkedIn, you are ranking on LinkedIn and things like that. So I'm going to be covering that in a different video. So please ensure that you subscribe to this channel, because I'm going to be sharing with you what is working in 2026 and how you can position yourself to land a visa-sponsored job in 2026. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel and drop a comment if you have any questions. Thank you.